What's going on, guys? This is Chandler Smith, and today I'm going to be going and refinancing 6 of my properties. And so in this video, I'm going to show you the entire process. I'm also going to explain how and when you should refinance and when you should avoid refinancing your properties so that you don't get burned. So with that being said, let's jump into it. For those of you that are new to the channel, my name's Chandler Smith, and I've been investing in real estate for the last 7 years. I currently own 99 units of rental real estate, and today I'm gonna be refinancing 6 of my properties. And so in this video, I wanna talk about the reasons you should or should not refinance your properties. But before I do that, I just wanted to throw out one quick reminder that there are just a couple days left to get my course on a huge discount. I'm gonna bump the price up to $500. However, I've had lots of people jump on at the discounted price. Right now, it's only $199 for the entire course. And so if you haven't already, make sure you go and snag it. I have put hours and hours into this course to make sure that it gives you everything you need to go from 0 rental properties to over 100 units of rental real estate, cash flowing 6 figures plus. So if you want to jump on that course, the link is down in the description, and you've still got a couple days left to get it on that deal. Now, let's jump into it. And what you need to know right off the bat is there are a couple reasons you should refinance and a couple reasons you should avoid it. And the trap that people fall into is they look and say, oh man, my interest rate right now is a 4%, and now interest rates are down at a 3.95. I should jump all over that. Now, maybe most of you wouldn't fall for a trap like that, but what you need to look at when refinancing your property is a couple different things. First off, you need to see how much closing costs are going to be to refinance your property, because this is an expense that is added on to your interest. It needs to be viewed just like interest is viewed. So if your closing costs are 2% of your purchase price and you're doing that just to lower your interest rate, maybe 0.25%, I don't think that works. Now, the way that you can calculate this is just look at what your payment is and look at what your payment would be. Now, this is the increase you're going to have in cash flow. The next thing you need to look at is how much you're paying in interest every single month compared to how much you would be paying in interest every single month. And what I want to do for the breakdown on both of these is then I want to say, all right, how long will it take for me to get back the money that I paid in closing costs with my cash flow? And how long will it take for me to get back the interest that I'm saving, which is going to be even longer, and then determine if it's worth it. Now, if you're planning on selling your property in the next 5 years, odds are refinancing is not a good call. But if you're planning on holding this for 30 years and you can see that in 3 years you will be back at ground zero and then making money because of what you've saved in your cash flow every month, then maybe it's worth considering refinancing. Now, a lot of times when you're refinancing, you can talk them into giving you a deal on your closing costs, and then it really makes sense. But it's all about where your break even is, okay? And your loan officer can help you run these calculations. You can say, look, I want to know exactly what my closing costs are, what my extra expenses are, and I want to see how long it's going to take for me to break even. Now, the other thing you have to consider is the cash aspect, because here's the deal. When you refinance, a lot of times you can pull money out of your property, which is another advantage that it's hard to tell how advantageous that is because it depends on where you're going to put that money. Now, if you just need the money, maybe it's an okay option, especially if you're getting a lower interest rate. But if you're going to be taking the money and sitting on it and doing nothing with it, and you're refinancing purely for the money, even though it really didn't help you that much because of what you had to pay in closing costs, then again, you've got to reevaluate whether you should do it or not. So for me, we're going to go show you the whole process today of going and getting your property refinanced, because today is the day that I close. But I'll just give you a rundown on why I refinanced my properties. On every one of my properties, I was anywhere from 1.75 up to 2% plus different in my interest rates. I was able to negotiate down my closing costs so they're very minimal. And so for me, these 6 properties that I'm refinancing are going to increase my cash flow by $10,000 plus every single year, which for me would be like buying another property the size of one of these that I'm refinancing. So it's going to be a huge win with my cash flow. It's going to be a huge win because my interest is going to be substantially lower. So my break even is going to be somewhere between 3 and 5 years, depending on which property it is. And it's also going to be big because I'm going to be able to take money out of each one of these deals. So not only is my cash flow getting better, not only is my break even not that far out, and I know I'm going to be holding these properties until past that break even point, but I'm also going to be able to take cash out of the deal that I'm going to be able to put into more real estate. And so for me, it is a win-win-win. Win-win-win. No. Especially because I'm not planning on selling my properties. Now, here's the deal. If I needed the money to pull out, maybe this would make sense, but even still, I don't think it would make sense if I would have been planning on selling these properties within the next 5 years. And that's such an important thing. People will jump into a refinance and they get totally burned because people will spend their money on a refinance, but they'll never make the money back because of what they spent in closing costs. They don't make it back in their cash flow or in what they paid less in interest because they sell their property too soon after a refinance. So I am begging you, do not refinance your properties unless you know you're gonna get past that break-even point, and if you know you're gonna be able to pull cash out of the deal. Because if it's a brand new property and you're not pulling any cash out and you're a ways down the road before your break even, that to me, again, seems a little risky. For me, I'm gonna be able to get to my break even, I'm gonna be able to pull cash out, and there are gonna be some tax advantages because of the money I spent in closing costs that I didn't actually spend because it just came out of what I already had in the property as equity. So not only was I able to take out money, I'm not spending any new money, I'm getting a refinance, I can break even in the very near future, and I'm pulling cash out. Is just a win-win-win. So there is a quick synopsis of why I refinanced and how you should refinance. And now let's go take a peek and go through the entire process with you. All right, say see you later, camera. Let's go and get these properties refinanced. Now, just so you guys understand how this process worked, I realized interest rates were super low because of all of the craziness going on in our world. And so I looked into my properties and I saw which ones it would make sense to refinance. I then reached out to my loan officer. Oh, sorry, kids are asleep. And after speaking with him, I wanted a printout of where my break even was on all of these properties. And I wanted to see what he could do for me on interest rates. Let's do these ones. Gotta make sure you remember your wallet when you go to close. Otherwise, it's not gonna work without your driver's license. Wrong one. Once I got all of the interest rates and then the breakdowns on each of the property from my loan officer, we just went through them. And I didn't come with just 6. I actually came with a lot of my properties that I'd bought in a while ago just to see where my rates were. And some of them were better than others. There was a time like 2-3 years ago where interest rates really spiked. And fortunately and unfortunately for me, I found some incredible deals right during that time. And so I just had to bite the bullet and purchase them with the higher interest rates because the numbers still worked for them. So I had interest rates that were like, heck, over 5% during that little spike. And I was just kind of stranded because I needed to close quickly. And that was the best that any credit union during that time could do. So I had these couple properties that were really high. I had a couple others that were really close to me not doing them. However, the numbers still made sense for me to do the refinance, pull money out, and get a much lower interest rate. Now, once I had done that and found the ones that worked, we decided to send it on all of those. So he started going through the process. Now, once they send them through, you still have to get an appraisal even though you'd bought these properties before. However, sometimes they have different options on the appraisal that you can do. What that means is there's like a cheaper appraisal for those ones that are in-house. And sometimes you can even get around the appraisal if you're not taking out a certain amount on the refinance. So make sure you talk to your loan officer, check into all the options you can to minimize your closing costs, because then that's gonna shorten up your break even when you're doing one of these refinances. Now, I had a buddy that had refinanced, and when we looked at his numbers, it was a bummer because his break even was a good 7-8 years in the future. And so it's like, well, dude, I guess if you're planning on not selling till then, that's great, but that isn't the best refinance. And so for me, that 3 to 5 year mark, I had a couple that I pushed the 5 year, but it was mostly because I could take some money out and I got them for closing costs that were pretty low and I got a lower interest rate, and I knew for sure I wasn't gonna be selling them in the next 5 years. And so for me, that made sense. However, every situation is different. So once I had pushed those through, we had people come to do the appraisals. Now, unfortunately, we ran into some major issues with the appraisals due to the whole, the virus thing going on right now. And so that pushed our time frame back when usually my guy can close super quick. Like these should have been like 20, 30-day things. Everyone was refinancing at the same time. So what I was able to do is make sure that he locked in the rate. So even though it ended up being way in the future, I made sure that my interest rate was locked in where it needed to be. The other thing I did, and this is something that's definitely worth looking into when interest rates are going crazy, is I got a buy down on my interest rate. Now, a lot of times these are a scam. However, during this craziness, there were a couple buy downs that were incredible for super cheap. And so I bought my rate down to a 3.25% on these multifamily units, which honestly is really, really good. And I got it for very, very cheap. So these refinances are gonna be awesome. This next year, I'm gonna cash flow way more, and I'm pulling a ton out in closing, which we're on our way to go and do right now. Now, with the closing process, there are a couple things that you wanna check for, and you wanna check for these before you go in. Now, before you close, they're going to send you documentation that shows everything that's gonna be on your closing docs. You wanna make sure that you go through that in detail and see that it matches up everything you agreed on with your loan officer before that. Because if you get that back and then they've tweaked like closing costs or something else, you got to give them heat about that. You got to make sure that your percentage is where it needs to be, your closing costs where it needs to be, your term rates, all of that stuff needs to check out from originally when you looked into the numbers. And you need to make sure you take notes of those so that everything is perfect when you go into close. You don't want to be trying to run those numbers when you come into close. Now, when you go into close, again, you're going to want to double check everything to make sure the numbers are at where they said that they would be. But once everything comes back clean, you're getting the value that you expected out of your property after the appraisal, and you have checked that in your documents before going into close. Closing is a pretty painless process where you just make sure everything says what it said it was going to say, what it said it was going to say before that. And if all of that is good, then you sign on the dotted line, you get your money out of the refinance, and you're ready to rock and roll. Just make sure that you remember to plug everything back in so that you get those payments made every month. Because all of mine were on automatic payment, I gotta make sure those are all set up, and I'm going to have to quit claim these back into the LLCs because now they're coming back into my name for the refinance, and I'll have to quit claim those back out. Now, I know that's a lot, but I wanted to give you the whole rundown, and now we're gonna go inside and close on these bad boys. All right, guys, we just finished. Now, fun fact from refinancing all of these properties, the new Corvette, I think I'm going to pull out a loan here in the near future. And when I looked into interest rates and loans, my payment on the new Corvette can actually be paid completely and have extra purely from the extra cash flow I'm gonna have in the properties from refinancing them. So that's one really cool fun fact, just a way to create a lot more cash flow by refinancing these properties. On top of that, I was able to pull out a full $12,000 and all of the taxes, insurance, anything else that was set aside that they're gonna get back to me, and not pay any money because the rest was taken out of my equity. Now, the reason I did that, I could have taken out a lot more, but I didn't want to do a full cash out. You can do up to $2,000 without it being a full cash out refi. So it'll end up being about $15,000 total that I get back. I don't put any in, and I got the lower interest rates as if I didn't do a cash out refi. So by refinancing these properties, I now was able to pay for the full Corvette, not even from buying a rental property, but purely from increasing the cash flow by refinancing. So my cash flow is higher to cover the payment on that. I got a ton of cash back that now can go right into the next rental property. So stay tuned. Now, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you push the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the little bell, and I'll make sure to do more videos like it, and that way you can catch them in the future. Guys, thanks so much and have a great day.